You describe again in some detail the procedures that the Commission used in evaluating the economic consequences of the auction rules on the designated entities?
The economic consequences of all of the auction rules on the DEs. I think that we try to make sure we're determining. First, we focused on the designated entity bidding credits, as that was the most contentious issue as it related to small and new entrants. And we did evaluate the concerns that had been raised about wanting to go back to the previous rules. We determined that the changes in the rules had still allowed designated entities to be successful in the auction, and at the same time we think it's a more appropriate means of preventing fraud. So we thought that was an appropriate rule change. We did look at the impact of the balance of rules, both auctioning off some of the licenses in larger areas and made sure that we reserved a significant portion of the spectrum for smaller bidders to be able to participate by having smaller geographic areas for them to be able to buy auction spectrum in. So I think that every auction we try to find a balance of some opportunities for small businesses to be able to participate on a smaller geographic area basis, but also some larger pieces of geographic areas and pieces of spectrum to be sold, because that at times facilitates for example, new entrants on a larger scale. And so I think that is an appropriate balance that we had to end up finding, but we certainly evaluated what the impact would be on small businesses for that.
Thank you. In developing auction rules, does the Commission perceive that the public interest is essentially equivalent to obtaining maximum revenue from the sale of the spectrum? And would there be situations in which the Commission adopts rules that do not maximize revenue, but instead maximize other public interest values?
Oh no, absolutely. We do not consider the public interest being simply maximizing revenue, and indeed the rules we adopted do not maximize revenue. If we wanted to maximize revenue, all of our studies show we would sell all of the spectrum basically in the largest geographic area possible, if not nationwide, and all of it on a very large spectrum basis, with no build-out requirements whatsoever, and certainly not. So all of those things, dividing up the country into smaller pieces, reduces the overall amount of money that's raised, but it provides an important opportunity for smaller players to get in and provide service. In addition, build-out requirements also decrease the value of the spectrum. People would the economists would say that the way to achieve the most value for the spectrum from the Treasury standpoint would be allow an incumbent to buy it and not use it, because it would prevent entry by anybody else. So he might be willing to pay a premium for the opportunity to not even build it out. So strict build-out requirements and dividing the spectrum up into smaller geographic areas both reduce the amount of money that the Treasury will receive from the auction, but they provide other very important public interest benefits, and so the Commission doesn't maximize revenue, and I think we do make sure that the spectrum is being put to use and that there's other opportunities.
Thank you. And finally, Verizon has challenged the Commission's auction rules in the D.C. Circuit. What would be the impact on the auction if Verizon were to win its challenge?
Obviously, it would depend upon when the court ended up hearing on it. Verizon has filed a lawsuit. They actually asked the court to consider hearing this on an expedited basis, and that because they said it was important as it related to the auction, and the court just ruled last week and denied that request and said that they would not hear that request on an expedited basis.
So then, relative to the impact, if they were to win the challenge, can you comment on that?
Well, it obviously depends upon when they won the challenge and whether that ended up ultimately being appealed. I mean, the Commission has had in the past its auctions that have been appealed after they've already occurred, and if the Commission ends up winning the auctions and winning those appeals, then there's no change. And if ultimately the person challenging the auction wins, the Commission has to go back and undo the auction, which is what occurred in the context of the one auction that's had to have been unwound, so to speak. And so that would depend upon when Verizon actually won their suit, if they won.
Thank you.